Is that better? Ooh, I hear that now. Aha. I think I got it. Hey, y'all. Is that better? Yeah, can y'all hear me now? Or are we echoing now? Anything? Anything at all? Yeah, yeah. It sounds better in my headphones all of a sudden. It sounds more live. Oh, yeah, there we go. Awesome. That's what I'm talking about. Man, I had a really good opening rant to this whole thing, too, where I was talking about, really find your passion. Mine was audio. We're working for a client, Silicon Auto, and that we were never asked to do light painting. It was just something we did because we wanted to do. Yeah, cool. Awesome, 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 awesome. Okay, cool. So audio was, light painting was something that was never asked of us. It was just something that we had developed in our toolbox over the course of a couple of years. And the story I tell with this client, they had a car sitting for 90 days that we didn't shoot. And the first car we were ever asked to shoot was a BMW i8, and I did a light painting with it, and the car sold within 8 days. And so from that point on, Paul at Silicon was like, "You're my guy. You're the guy that's going to come shoot for us every time because we put in that extra effort, and it made the car sell that had been sitting on his lot." And so for me, light painting cars especially is something that, it can make that wow factor. And I challenge you in all of your work to go out and find wow factor stuff, right? Go out and find what you can do for your clients to make yourself stand out, to make yourself indispensable, where it has to be you doing the work. So that was a short answer to my preamble that nobody heard but me. So, all right, let's see where we're at then. Let's go back over here. All right, so we're in Lightroom, okay? And, ooh, I do not need that. We're in Lightroom right now, and this is the light painting file. So we went out and data collected, right? So a light painting is just like a panorama or an HDR or anything else. We're just collecting data. And in this case, let me go through kind of slowly, but we have the body of the car light paint. We have the front wheel. I'm actually missing one. There's a back wheel in there somewhere. Yep, back wheel. Okay, so we have back wheel. We have this green background that I tried. I was going for like a Miami South Beach kind of vibe because that's kind of what the car spoke to me. And I didn't like this one. So I looked at the camera and said, no, that doesn't look right. And then I kind of came up with this teal color. I was like, oh, yeah, that looks right. And so this is going to be our floor. Okay, so we're going to expose this just for the floor here. All right. And then I tried some different patterns. Now, again, this is just me running around behind the car with a light wand. And I was kind of going for like waves, right? I was thinking South Beach, Miami waves. That's kind of what I was going for. I tried it again. I was like, you know what? It just doesn't do it. So then I went simple, right? This Maybach has very clean lines, very elegant lines. So I was like, let's just do one circle. And that circle is actually me just rotating my shoulder with our Nan light wand. It's called the Mix Wand 18. And so that's just me and my arm, right? So what we're going to do, we're going to take all of these files, we're going to edit them in Lightroom, and I'm going to show you how some of these tools work. We're going to export them, we're going to open them up in Photoshop, and then we're going to stick them all together. Sound like a fun little journey? Yeah. All right, so the first one we want to get, now, again, all of these were shot, obviously, on a tripod. I was at ISO 50, f8, 20 seconds, okay? f8, 20 seconds. And so that gives me time to walk in front of the camera and, get a nice smooth light. Now, what we're doing with this light wand really is mimicking what a big silk might be able to do, right? So imagine if we had like a big 30 by 40 foot silk that we could place right over the camera and just get those really cool lines going across. So with time, we're taking a 1 foot light wand, or maybe 2 foot light wand, and mimicking a 30 foot silk. So we're starting at 0 and over 20 seconds. We're moving at the same distance, right? We're still moving at 20 or 30 feet so that light is dispersed evenly across and shows the lines of the car, the hips of the car. Okay, so let's go ahead and start on this first car. So I've done nothing to this photo. There's just a normal input. The first thing I want to talk about is profile. So I have a profile for my cameras. I've calibrated my cameras with a X-Rite Color Checker Passport 2, and I have created a profile for my Canon 5D Mark IV. Okay, so that's what this profile is. If you had different profiles, they're going to give you different color renditions. So the profile is the first pipeline that colors go through. It's the first funnel that your raw data goes through. So we want to make sure that we have a good funnel for that data to go through. In this case, I created a specific one for me. I'll talk about calibrating monitors maybe in another one. I don't want to talk about it too much today. I really want to talk about this process, but just know this is a custom profile based on my actual camera color rendition against a known color target. The second thing, we're going to change our white balance. I know that I was using a 5600 Kelvin light wand, so I'm just going to go ahead and just raise my white balance to 4800. Let's go to 5000. Just a nice warm tone, just daylight balance. I was using a daylight balance source, so I want to kind of match daylight. Okay. The next thing, if you notice, just looking at this file, that the center of the car kind of got more light than the hips did. Okay. So I'm just going to start with exposure, and let's just bring it up to where the center looks right. Okay, maybe half a stop. Let's say half a stop. Now, again, I don't care that this light streak is there. It's not going to be there at the end. And in fact, if you look close, you can actually see my legs a little bit, but those aren't going to be there either. Okay. So what we're going to do, I just want to make the body panel of the car look right. That's my goal for this first file here. Okay. So I'm just going to give it a little bit of contrast. And then I want to even out, see this front nose, it's a little bit darker, and the back hips are a little bit darker than the center. So let's even those out. The way I'm going to do that, I'm going to use the radial filter, and it's basically just dodging and burning. So I'm going to take my radial filter, let's add half a stop to the hip, and just kind of aim it right on the hip there. And it's still a little bit, so we're just going to tweak it up a little bit. Let's go to like 8/10. Okay, that looks pretty good. So just with our radial filter, I'm going to click and hold. You'll see where it's performing that. And it's just on that hip. It's just kind of even out that exposure. Okay. So we're going to do another one of those at the front tip of the car. Let's just go ahead and go to 0.8 again. And all this is doing is just saying, hey, everything inside this circle, let's brighten up. Okay. Now we could apply other variables there to it. But in this case, let's just kind of make that front end a little bit smoother. And I'm going to go ahead and boost the whites there a little bit. Okay. So we're just going to take the white values and boost them up. And again, if y'all have questions, throw them in the, go ahead and just throw them in the comments. So if I'm going too fast on something, you will be able to watch this replay. But again, I'm just going to boost the whites, and let's just boost the highlights a little bit. Okay, make that nice and good. You know what, let's raise the shadows up a little bit too. So just the shadow values are raising those as well. Okay, so for this radial filter, everything inside this curve, we've added 1.5 exposure, we've added highlights, we've added shadows, we've added whites, all of that kind of good stuff. Okay, let's see who's messaging me, one of yous. So now the body panel's looking better. You know what? And I think this back one needs to come up just a little bit more. So I'm going to go ahead and just select the pen again. And we're just going to raise the highlights a little bit. And we're going to raise the shadows back there a little bit. Just kind of give it a little bit smoother translation there. Okay. And so now if we hit Y, we can see a before and after. And so on the left is where we started. On the right is where we are now. Yeah, it's looking pretty good. I think my white balance is a little warm, though. I'm going to drop it back down to 4800 Kelvin. Again, some of this, I just use the original one to start. I take a look and we kind of go, right? There's an article coming out tomorrow on the Patreon. It's about seasoning to taste, right? So much of post-processing, there's no right or wrong. Okay, it's just making it look right for you. Okay, and part of being an artist is having taste and having a sense of style. And your style is always going to be different from somebody else's. I'm here to show you technique right now. Okay, so on this body panel, I don't really want to mess with the blacks at all. I'm going to bring up the shadows just a little bit, just to kind of get rid of this kind of middle part right here. I'm just going to smooth that gradient out a little bit. Okay, and then we're going to add vibrance. I'm going to go vibrance 20. I prefer vibrance over saturation. I think saturation has a tendency to overwhelm the color channels, where vibrance is more of a perceptual saturation. So we're just going to make the vibrance a little bit more there. Let's see what the dehaze might do. Yeah, maybe just a little dehaze. That's a little less, maybe just 5. Cool. The other thing I want to do on these type of files, I want to go to enable profile correction to correct any lens geometry. And I'm going to take the vignetting and take it down to 0. But I do want to fix any lens geometry. Now, I was shot at f8 on an L lens, but every lens has its own geometry. And so by using lens correction, you're going to fix stoning depending on which edge I'm on. If I'm at the wide end, it kind of gives me a fat side. If I'm at the telephoto, it kind of pin cushions in. So I want to correct those optical geometries. Okay, my noise reduction, I'm shot at ISO 50. I don't really need any there. I don't really need to do any transform. I don't really want to do any. I don't really care about highlight priority vignetting, because right now all I care about is the center part of the car. Okay. All right. So pretty standard edit on the body here. But I just wanted to show you what a radial tool might do. Okay, we can select a radial tool of having the information inside that curve, or we can click off invert, and now would be the information outside the curve. So by toggling invert, you can see where it's going. So if I show you that it's going inside the curve, and if I toggle invert, it's the area outside the curve that gets these instructions. Okay, so we're just kind of lassoing in different information. Okay, and again, we're all in the develop module. Okay, this is all in the develop module for right now. Also, my plan is doing a whole bunch of these, so if there's something I don't cover today, I'll be doing these again. Right now, I really want to just focus on this one, and we'll go from there. I absolutely do want to do one on camera and monitor calibration. We'll absolutely do one on that. And if you have suggestions, throw them out there, and we'll take a look at it. You know, whatever y'all want to do, I'm happy to talk about. So if you have suggestions for other Lightroom lessons, let me know. Okay, so this photo's done. I'm going to give it a 1 star just so I can filter for it later. Okay, so let's go to the front wheel. So I'm just going to select this front wheel photo. Now in this case, that front wheel got a little hot. When I'm light painting, I'm just counting to myself, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and I turn the thing off. But in this case, I went a little too long, and that wheel's a little too bright. So I just want to make sure that I enable the same profile corrections so that the geometry of all my files is the same. Because if I don't, layer masking them in post is going to be very difficult, because they won't have the same geometry. And so all I care about right now is this wheel. I don't care about anything else in this photo, just this wheel. So all I'm going to do, I'm going to give myself the same white balance. Okay, 4800, and that's usually my starting spot if I'm using strobes. And I'm just going to bring down the highlights. Okay, the highlights, if we see up in our histogram, are that kind of upper 30%. Okay, and I'm just going to go ahead and just bring down those highlights a little bit. I'm going to raise the shadows just a touch so that we can see some of the detail inside of that wheel. Okay, again, all I care about is that one wheel. I don't care about anything else. Okay, I'm going to bring down the whites a little bit. Just, yeah, that looks better. I don't want it was a little too much going on. Okay, and again, I'm going to bring up my vibrance to 20. In this case, I'm going to give it some clarity, and clarity just kind of gives it that like punch. All right, it's kind of like a sharpening contrast combo. And let's give it a little dehaze, and dehaze is localized contrast. It was meant for getting rid of fog in landscape photos, but people found lots of other uses for it. Okay, so a cool thing I can do, that wheel looks fine to me now. I'm going to go to picture 3, which is just the back wheel. And something that can save yourself a lot of time is if you hit previous. Okay, so what previous is going to do is says everything you did in that last photo, do exactly to this photo. So everything we did in that photo, do exactly to this photo. Okay, so again, now my back wheel is looking pretty close. It's a little bright, and so I'm just going to take my exposure down just a little bit, 0.2 of a stop. And now I'm just going to flip back and forth just to gauge. Yeah, they look about the same now. I'm just eyeballing it. Okay. All right. Cool, cool, cool. Y'all being quiet. Once we got the audio fixed, I haven't heard any comments. Am I talking too fast? I have a tendency to do that. Got my red diamond sweet tea. We're ready to go. So again, I'm going to go back and just give these photos that I'm going to use a 1 star. That just allows me to filter what I want to export. Okay. So right now I have 3 photos done. So I have the body panel and the wheels done. Okay. This photo I'm not going to use, so I'm not going to give it a 1 star. Okay. So that one's just kind of going to get discarded just based on filtering. Okay. Now, this blue one I do like. Now, the information that I want from this is all at the bottom here. Okay. I don't care about anything else other than the floor. So I'm just going to boost my exposure and give this cool glow under the floor. See this, just this area here. And now I'm going to crank up my vibrance. I want a really bright floor to 20 again. You know, let's cool that back down. And then let's crank up the clarity. I just want that floor to be very like crunchy detail. And we're going to contrast that with the smoothness of the car. Okay. And then let's add a little dehaze. Yeah, just add that punch. So now we have something like 35 clarity, 20 dehaze. I'm going to hit Y so you can see a before and after. Yeah, just to give that kind of, I want that floor to come out. Okay. And that's all I need to do for this file because that's all the data that I care about from this file. All I'm going to use is this bottom here. Okay. I don't need anything else. Oh, I do want to make sure that my lens correction is on though, so the geometry matches up between files. Okay. I'm going to give that one a 1 star as well. So I'm going to come to this last one. 6 and 7 I'm not going to use. I'm just going to go straight to 8 because that's the one I want to use. And I'm just going to go ahead and hit previous again. And all I care about on this file is this ring back here. Okay, that's the only part that I'm really going to use. And so it doesn't need that much exposure. So I'm just going to bring it down. Let's just boost it to +1 stop. Okay, +1 stop. And really in Lightroom, that's all we really need to do. We could have used the gradient tool. So this gradient tool here in the center, right? We could have, actually let's do that, right? So we can kind of even out the floor there a little bit. By 0.8 of a stop, we can, I'm going to click on that so you can see it coming up. So from the first line to the second line, we're applying 100% of the information. From the second line to the third line there, it's going to kind of fade out. Can you see that bottom line there? Okay. So I kind of like that. We're brightening up this bottom 20% more than this part here. Cool. So I think that looks pretty good. All right. So we can filter. Ooh. Now we can just filter for 1 stars. Okay. And it's just going to show me everything that I have colored red, which is my light painting colors, and that have 1 star. So all we're going to do now is select all 5 of those. Then we're going to go and export them. And so I'm just going to call it light paint Maybach S550 stream. Let's call it the same thing for our files. Start number 1000. I like start number 1000 because that doesn't give me any weirdness with some programs. 1s and 10s and 100s, it does weird stuff when it goes. Quality 100%. I'm not going to do any I'm not going to do any image sizing. I will say this image sizing is really powerful for social media, if you just resize the fit long edge and give it like 1600 pixels, you can export a whole bunch of social media size files without having to take them into Photoshop and do a whole bunch of other things. But we're not going to resize. We're going to be working with full res files. And my output sharpening is going to be for screen, and it's going to be low. I don't want to do a whole lot of sharpening. Okay, we'll do that later if we do it at all. So I'm going to go ahead and hit export those 5 files. Let's see what happens next. This would be a good time to ask questions if you have any. All right. So we're going to be switching over to Photoshop now. I know I said Lightroom Live, but really this was really learn how to do light painting more than anything. But the whole series is going to be called Learn Lightroom Live. So we're already breaking the rules on the first one. That sounds like something Josh would do. Okay. So we're going to switch over here to Photoshop. Just want to make sure that my screen's still... Yep. Okay, good. And let's talk about which one to open first. So when you're doing a light painting or when you're doing a layer masking, you kind of want to start with the back file first and then build up on top. Okay, so if we were doing a landscape, we would want to have like the sky as our first file and then build things on top of that. If we think of layer masking as just stenciling, we would want to have the bottom layer, and then we'll put stencils on top to conceal or reveal. All right, so what I would do, I'm going to start with the floor. That's the easiest one for me. And I'm just going to go ahead and just drag it over. And we're going to start with the floor. And then we're going to stack these, okay? So then I'm going to open, this is going to be back behind us there. Okay. And then I'm going to start with the body. Okay. And then we're going to add the front wheel. Ooh. Nope, not that. Add the front wheel. Okay. And then we're going to add the back wheel last. Okay. All right. And so if we look at our files, we're going to have our background file. And then we're going to have kind of building up. So as we go up, we're going to get closer to the information to the camera, right? Yeah, Jim, honestly, if I was doing this, it would probably make sense to export as PSDs, and that way they stay as 16-bit files instead of 8-bit files. And that's a good question. I usually just do big exports and then open them up later in Photoshop. But it is certainly valid. There's no quality loss to just right-click and send to Photoshop. But for me, I think it's faster, especially when I have like 100 files or 200 files, just to do batch exports. And then I can kind of select which ones I want, especially like if I'm doing star trails where there may be 50, 100, 150 files associated with that one image. I find it easier and a little bit easier on my computer to export everything I need, close Lightroom, open Photoshop, and then do what I need, just as a resource thing for me. And if I know that I'm going straight into Photoshop, I will export as PSDs because that's kind of a more of a lossless file format. TIFFs to me are a little too big, and they're not great for. They're not really good at lossless or file management, so they're kind of in the middle for me. I prefer either JPEGs or PSDs, but again, your mileage may vary, right? That there's more than one way to skin that cat. So the first thing I'm going to do, I'm just going to unsee everything but these first two. So we have our background here, and then we have this. So this is going to be our first paint, okay? And so what I'm going to do is just create a new layer mask, right? This kind of file with the circle in it, right? That's our stencil, okay? And then I'm just going to use the brush tool. Nice brush, not much hardness. Okay, and I'm just going to paint in the floor. Okay. Whew. Computer's struggling a little bit trying to stream and run Photoshop. That's something new to know. Okay, so I'm just going to kind of give a big, really just a big kind of, I'm not trying to be too fine with my painting right now. I'm just kind of painting. Okay. And I'm just getting close. Okay. And then I'm going to kind of zoom in a little bit and then refine that. Okay. When we get to the car, we'll be using the select subject in Photoshop. Oop. And if you hit X, it'll switch between black and white. And so now I'm just going to mask out that kind of, I don't even know what it is. It's showing the bulbs from my light wand, and I don't want to see those. Okay. All right. Cool. So now we have, look at there. That didn't take too long, right? That was what, 30 seconds maybe? But what we did, all we did was just paint in, we created a stencil. You can kind of see the stencil here, this black and white area. And all we did was said, hey, show this part of the photo and not this part. Okay. So black conceals, white reveals. Okay. And the great thing about layer masks is that it allows us to go back and always edit it. Okay, so it's a little bit more non-destructive way. I haven't done anything to my source file. It's just what we see, but I haven't done anything to the actual source file. Cool. All right. So let's go ahead and go to the body of the car. Now for this, I want to show y'all. So I'm not going to start off by creating a layer mask here. What we're going to do, Photoshop came out with a new feature maybe 6 months ago. It's called Select Subject. And what we're going to do is just kind of, not that one. Let's try that again. And we're just going to say, hey, somewhere in here is our subject. It's going to do some thinking. And especially as I'm trying to stream and run Photoshop and Lightroom and a whole bunch of other equipment. Let's see. It's thinking. It's thinking a whole lot. I might have broken it. This live TV thing is really fun. Yeah, Mark, that's a great question. And while my computer sits and thinks here, now I use a mouse. I have fiddled with the idea of playing with a Wacom. I just haven't done it. I don't know. I should. It would make my life easier, but I've spent so many years with a mouse that I just don't. I don't know. It's what works for me. I will show y'all something that I use. Let me flip my camera down real quick. Oh, it's not going to show you because I have a weird app running. Never mind. But I do use something called palette gear, and actually it has a different name now, but it is a hardware interface. Man, I have locked things up. Oh, there we go. All right. Hey, we're back. Maybe, partly. All right. So, let's go back to Photoshop here. And what it's done is it's tried to find the edges of the thing that I said was there. So I said, hey, select subject. And it did some math and tried to figure it out. And so what I want to do is go up to the select and mask. Okay. And so we can just, ooh, man, this is, yeah. So we can just use the select and mask feature to find the car. And we're just going to get close. Ooh, that went too far. Okay. But this is a really handy way to, and a very fast way, honestly. If you have a decent computer, this is a nice, fast way to get your edges right. Rappers would say, get your money right. I'm going to say, get your edges right. And there's a little bit of ebb and flow, a little bit of give and take here. Okay. And so I just want to say, hey, my subject is all inside here. And then what I'm going to do is export this as a new layer mask. So that's pretty close there. That's pretty close. We're going to have to do a little bit of tweaking. But the trick to this one, it says output to, and we want to say layer mask. Okay? Output to layer mask. It's pretty close, like right off the bat, right? That honestly doesn't take that long. Now, we're going to have to do a little bit of cleanup there. You know, we're just going to zoom in, especially along this roof line. You know, we're just going to have to do a little bit of painting. It's not that bad, though. Right? We're just going to just kind of fiddle with our edges. Right, not too bad there. That roof line needs a little bit of work. Oh, yeah, yep. We can zoom in a little bit. Alt in your zoom wheel. I don't know. See, I used to be able to navigate Windows with just my keyboard. So I like keyboards and mouse. I don't know. That's just how I've done things for so long. So Alt in the zoom wheel will zoom you out. And then zoom you back into different areas. Right, I don't want to see that. Ooh. And then X will switch you back to white. And just kind of paint back in. Okay. Yeah. And that's why, so my brush, I don't have a lot of hardness because I want to utilize those edges as a way to kind of feather in and feather out. Okay, there's a little bit more right there. I'm going to use a very small brush. And just kind of get rid of that little white right there. Okay, so all I'm doing is just layer masking, right? I have done nothing to the source files. Okay. Everything looks good. Just checking edges. Ooh, there's something weird there. I'm not sure what that is. Is that part of the car? What is that? Oh, it is part of the car. Okay, so we want that back in there. Okay, that's a tailpipe right there. Couldn't tell what it was. All right. So as we're looking back, I know there's some red lines. We'll take care of that in a little bit. And so these red dots, that's the back of my light wand. I forgot to tape over it. Okay, now this wheel, right, that looks kind of weird. So let's just get rid of that. We're not going to use that part of the wheel anyway because we have two files just for the wheels. Okay, so we just kind of want to let a little blue come back in. And again, we're just painting in, right? All we're doing is layer masking. If we make a huge mistake, we can just paint it back out, right? Because what we're doing is a very non-destructive way to edit these files, right? I'm not touching my source files. All right, so we're like 90% of the way there already. This really isn't that hard of a process. So again, for the wheels, I'm just going to select my layer, create a layer mask. And in this case, I'm just going to paint it black. So if we go to the paint bucket, okay, paint bucket tool, we're just going to paint this whole layer mask black. And then I'm going to flip over to white, go to my brush tool, give me a little bit bigger brush, and I'm just going to paint in my new wheel. Okay. All right, kind of gives a little bit more spit and polish to that wheel, I think. And all I was doing with that light wand was just kind of moving it all over. So I took that light wand, and again, with time, we can allow it to get bigger. Okay. Okay. There we go. Just kind of cleaning up the edges. Front wheel's done. Bada bing. Go to the back wheel, select the file, create a layer mask, go to the paint bucket tool, paint it all black, go to the brush tool, change the white, paint in our new wheel. Look at there. Look at there. Nothing too hard, right? Yeah. So there's a little bit of cleanup left. Okay. On this file, I'm actually now going to go to my source file. I'm going to use the clone healing, right? The little spot healing tool. Let's zoom in back there. Ooh. And we're just going to get rid of these red dots. Okay. Just with our little spot healing tool. Boom. Gone. Go to the front of the car. Spot healing tool. Just paint over those. Boom, gone. I'm going to look for any areas that I want to get rid of. So on our background file, see this whole floor? You know, I might just want to spot heal some different areas. You know, if there was like a big water stain or something like that, I might want to get rid of. Everything's looking pretty good, though. Nothing too outrageous. Look at there. Now, I would save this out as a PSD file, right? I would save this as, you know, something .psd. And then I would save out the TIFF or the JPEG or whatever I was going to do. If, you know, if I knew if I was going to make a print or what have you. But this allows me, if I need to make changes or I missed something, this allows me to go back and make changes if I had missed something that I just didn't see. Yeah. So yeah, what questions do y'all have? Do y'all want to see what, after I didn't have audio, y'all kind of missed my amazing opening spiel. I'm kind of mad about that. So yeah, are there questions that y'all wanted to answer right now? The four of y'all who stuck with me. But it's really not that hard once you have a couple key concepts down, okay? Layer masking, selecting our subject. That's such a crucial, those are foundational things in Photoshop that you're going to use no matter what you're doing. You're going to use them over and over and over and over and over again in Astro, in landscape, on product, on portrait, on whatever you're doing. You're going to use layer masking. You're going to use select subject. They're just things that the sooner you can learn them, the better, right? Now, I kind of set myself up for success here. I only did one body panel. If you have multiple body angles, things get a little bit more difficult just trying to blend in the side panel with, you know, maybe the hood or the rear. That gets a little bit more tricky, okay? And instead of using just the white brush, you might use some gradient brushes, or you might lower your opacity where you're painting with gray instead of black or white, okay? But again, it's the same concept there. It's just maybe a little bit more refined. But this is the easy way, okay? Shooting one body panel that you have to get right, that makes it a lot easier than if you have to do, you know, multiple different panels or windows or whatever. Now, the thing I didn't do, I didn't get a good exposure for my window, and I don't really like it. And in fact, if I scrolled in, I really don't like that this is different, and I might paint that in differently. All right, so this is the good thing about being able to come back, right, and saving as a PSD, right? I may want to come back and paint out, you know, that different colored background, okay? And so I did not set myself up for success by getting a good interior light paint that I could have used, okay? So this area bothers me. It bothers me that I have this stripe there. Oh, I used the clone stamp tool, not the brush tool. Let's try that again. Right, so I don't like that this little bit is different. That part does bother me, and I would have gone back and fixed that. But that's why it's good to save everything out as a PSD so that you have that still, right? So you still have that data. But yeah, that part bothers me. That comes down to having good data collection. That means when I was collecting my source, right, when I was out shooting, I didn't do a good enough job of getting what I needed to get. So I missed getting something in the field. And honestly, that's where a lot of the learning comes in, because I won't do that again, probably. But all my mistakes that I make in the field, you know, it's also why I don't allow other people to do my editing. I've tried, but I quit learning when I started letting other people edit for me, because I never had that feedback loop. I never had that loop of going, man, you messed that one up. And you kind of need those, I messed those up times, so that you can get better. If you always have somebody do stuff for you, especially with editing, you're never going to get better. So like, I think that looks better now. Ooh, but see, I don't like this roof. It's too gray. I should have done an interior paint as well, and we could have had something really cool going on there. Yeah. All right. Still, any questions? Anything else y'all like to know? Dead air. You know, what I was saying at the very beginning that y'all didn't get to hear, so much of it is find ways that you can be valuable to your clients in ways that they don't ask for. So, Stacy, yeah. So why do I set my layers that way? I want to work back to front. Imagine that you were doing a drawing, right? If you're sketching out something, you'd kind of want to start with what you see in the background and then build on top of it. I find that it's much harder if I start on top and work my way backwards. I used to do it that way, and this way is much cleaner for me to edit in because I'm kind of starting with my background and building on top of it. So each new layer is kind of the layer that I want you to see. It just makes a little bit more logical sense. Like the wheels are the closest things to the camera, and so I want those to be last, so that I know what I'm painting on top of, right? So I'm building on top of things. Yeah. So closest to the camera goes last. Yeah. Good question. The other thing is, it's finding ways that you can be valuable, right? Whether you're assisting, whether you're helping, whether you're doing, that's how we built our business, was find ways where the people that hired us would never hire anybody else because we did something different or unique or very well, or even, it's not even that you have to do something different, honestly. If you can be on time, courteous, and deliver files quickly, man, that goes... I can't tell you how many jobs we've gotten because we weren't the cheapest, but we were the first ones to respond. And then we got more work, not because our work was necessarily objectively the best, but it was in their hands the first. Yeah, I'm just like Bob Ross, even with kind of this weird hair. Yeah, I'm just like Bob Ross. Exactly. But as a business, for those of you who are trying to run this as a business, delivering things quickly makes up for a lot of mistakes. Yeah. So, anyway, go ahead and hit like on the YouTube channel if y'all could. If you haven't subscribed to the YouTube channel, subscribe as well. This will be going up for replay here in just a little while. Also, next week, we're going to be doing another Josh Says Mean Things. I'll be announcing that probably Wednesday. So go ahead and start getting some photos together. And we'll be doing that again probably next Tuesday. Not tomorrow, but in 8 days from now, we'll be doing a Josh Says Mean Things. And my plan is to start kind of alternating these. So every week we'll have a live stream between Josh Says Mean Things and then Learn Lightroom Live. And I think the next Learn Lightroom Live, we'll talk about monitor and camera calibration, and we'll walk through those processes of how to make sure you're getting the best color out of your camera, the best color out of your monitor, so that when you go to print, it's exactly what you're expecting. And I think that's just a very crucial foundational step for all of your photography as well. And videography as well, right? Making sure that what your cameras think they're recording is actually what they're recording, kind of an important thing. Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, subscribe to the channel. Tell your friends about our Patreon. It'd be really helpful. I just want to get this information to as many hands as I can. I want people to create the things that they want to create. And if I can help them along the way, that makes me very happy. So yeah, go tell your friends about what we're doing. Text them or send them a link. I have a free article coming out tomorrow. And Mark, it was coming from our conversation about salt and pepper. And so there's going to be a free article on our Patreon that y'all can share with your friends as something to be like, hey, this is the type of stuff that he talks about. So that'll be freely available to share. It should be coming out tomorrow about 10 a.m. Is what I think I scheduled it for. We'll do monitor and camera calibration in 2 weeks. That sound good, y'all? Sound good? Awesome. Well, guys, thanks for joining us. Thanks for sticking with me through the random audio problems. Apparently, it was configured differently than it always is. Who knew? Audio is my bugaboo, so it's what always gets me, and I apologize. But thanks for sticking with us. And, we'll see y'all next week for Josh Says Mean Things, and then in 2 weeks for some more Learn Lightroom Live. All right, thanks, y'all.